Hey guys, it's Kevin, and this review for this series premiere of American Crime Episode 1. Now, I'm not saying Season 1 because this apparently is a limited series. It could get a Season 2. I'm going to say this, it's probably going to get a Season 2 because, The Missing and all shows like that, every time a show is a limited series, it gets a Season 2. But it is definitely an anthology series. This is only going to be a one-season thing. I personally feel it should be a one-and-done thing, but let me just get into this. I was very excited for this show, and it's actually kind of funny how I found out about the show. When I saw Jupiter Ascending, which was at best a mediocre movie, the one thing I can say that I'm happy about is that I saw a trailer for this show, and I'm like, you know what, that sounds really interesting because the way they introduce is that it's one crime and how it affects all these different people. And it's only one crime, and I think that's really interesting the way the show was. And overall, after seeing the premiere, how is American Crime? American Crime might become one of my favorite shows on TV right now. Like, really, it might. It is probably going to end up becoming, well, it's not even my favorite crime drama. Justified's my favorite crime drama by far, but this is definitely going to be one of my favorite crime dramas. It's so different for network television, and it's so gritty and dark, and I love that about the show. But let's just get into it, because I really want to talk about this show, and, yeah, so let's just get into it. So basically, we start off with a 911 call, and this unknown man's voice is saying, "I don't know if this is a home invasion or," and it's a. There are some hard scenes to watch in the show, and I'd say the first 5 minutes honestly are the hardest scenes to watch, just because of what ends up happening in those 5 minutes. He basically talks about how his neighbors pretty much look dead, and that's just so intriguing. Because if someone didn't know the show, they'd just be like, "Wow, that's so intriguing." And then we meet Russ Skokie, excuse me, Russ Skokie, and he is woken up by a phone call in the middle of the night from this Modesto Robbery Homicide Division, which is a call you never ever want to get. Like, you never want to get a call from them. And after talking to the detective, he flies to Modesto, California, and meets with the office. And you can see the look on his face. He has no idea what's about to happen. He knows something bad happened. He doesn't know the full details or anything. And one of the things I love about the scene is just how realistic it is, and the way they show his reaction. It's amazing to watch. He's taken to a morgue and identifies his son Matt, and he attempts to hold it together in front of the officer. He's not trying to completely lose it. He's telling him that they have his body in there, and they need to identify it, and if that is really his son's body, he needs to tell them straightforward that it is his son's body. He realizes that he is, and then he goes to a bathroom, he breaks down, and just such an amazing scene. I mean, we barely know anything about this character, and already I was invested. That's one of the things I love about the show, is just how invested I was in these characters. And he's crying and sobbing. And the detective tells Russ that his son was killed in the home invasion, and his son's wife, Gwen, was also sexual, but was actually supposedly sexually assaulted, and is very critical. She's not, she didn't die, but she's probably not going to live. She's very critical, and it doesn't seem very hopeful. So he's getting all this information in about 5 minutes. Like, it's really just, it's crazy, but it's realistic too, because that actually happens to people every day. They get this kind of information, and they don't know what to do with it, and, Russ happens to be one of those people. So he tells Russ that they have a vehicle of interest, and a suspect is a young Hispanic male, and the detective thinks it could have been a robbery, but is looking for a motive. They don't know why this would have happened. He asks Russ several questions about his son, and we find out that Matt's mother hasn't been told of his death yet. And apparently Russ and Matt were very close, and they used to talk to each other a lot, and they had just talked to each other that Sunday night, which was actually the night that he was killed. And again, it's a very sad scene to watch, but basically the detective asks Russ if he wants him to call his wife, and he doesn't answer, because, he's a nervous wreck. Obviously, he's not really going to answer his question. So that was just an amazing first scene. But then it even gets more interesting, because then we meet Hector Taunts, who he is this character who is very suspicious to me, and to me personally, I think is the one that killed Matt, because he's using the name Mr. Skokie. He's using his name, and I think that he's the one that did it. He's buying these headphones, and Alonzo Gutierrez, so that was definitely a very intriguing scene. So then we meet Alonzo Gutierrez, who he comes home to find his daughter on the couch with a boy from school. He doesn't know about it. He doesn't know what they were doing. They weren't making out or anything. She was just painting her nails, she claims. You can tell the chemistry. You can tell that those two definitely like each other, but there are fights with her about it. He's then grilling his son, Tony, about what they were doing, and he's saying that he has no idea and everything. You can definitely tell that they are a very broken family, that they're a very, bad family. They're not in a very good position. And again, you don't know too much about these characters, but you're so drawn to them because of their introductions. One of the things I love is that the first few scenes are just the introductions to all these different characters. And I love that. And every character in the show is interesting. There's not one character that I can say is not interesting. And I'm going to be honest, this is more intriguing than How to Get Away with Murder. If you guys know, I didn't really watch How to Get Away with Murder for that long because I wasn't as intrigued by it as I was with this. This I find a lot more intriguing. So, Russ meets with his ex-wife Barb, who of course she did not get a call about Matt dying. So she's at a diner to talk about their son's death, and she's upset that the police haven't done anything. They haven't done enough, but really they haven't done anything. They're not even really doing any further research or anything. And when she hears this, and this really just shows how different Russ and Barb are, how their reactions are. And I really like this scene. She hears as a Hispanic suspect, she says some illegal. Russ says she hasn't told their other son, Matt, about the death, but will call him. And he says that we need to be a family now. Barb heads off to talk to the police, and I thought that was a very interesting scene. So at a party, Aubrey gets into a fight with another woman and is left beaten and bloodied as her boyfriend Carter runs to her aid and calls for help. And these two characters are definitely very intriguing. Carter takes Aubrey to their rundown apartment and gives her a bath, treating her wounds because, she was beaten and bloodied, basically. So they then fight. They're looking for drugs, and she asks why he let the other woman attack her. And Carter comforts her and says that she is going to do better. And you can just see how much he loves her, and how drawn he is to her. I really like their introduction as well. What I like about the show is that Russ and Barb, their whole thing is just as interesting as Aubrey and Carter. They're just as interesting. I definitely really like that about their characters. I think every character in the show, as I said, is interesting, and I think that just shows how interesting they all are. I know I keep saying interesting, but really that's what it is. So then we meet Gwen, who she is, of course, in the hospital. She's unconscious, and her parents, Tom and Eve Carlin, meet with Russ and Barb says that a reporter wants to do a story about them and the home invasion, and she thinks it's a good idea to let people know who their children were and keep the story present. But the Carlins aren't comfortable with talking about their daughter being violated, which is understandable. I mean, if you find out your daughter was violated, I mean, that's just not something you really want them to know. I understand where Russ and Barb are coming from, but I think for this, it's best to keep that story under wraps, but you should let people know about it. You don't need to tell the whole world about it, but tell a select group of people. Yeah, I can understand that. However, it can be sort of like an embarrassing thing, also a hard thing to tell. I think just they need to decide really what they need to do there, and I think that was a very interesting scene that I definitely really enjoyed. So Hector brings the stolen goods he bought with Skoki's credit card to a drug dealer to get cash, and Hector then goes to Alonzo's garage, picks up a car from Tony, drives off, and during the daytime, Tony is pulled over while taking a car. Now, of course, remember, there was a car, and a Hispanic is the one that could have done it. Now, Tony is definitely not the one that did it. He seems way too innocent, and if he did it, it would just seem too predictable. So you know that Tony's not the one that did it. Who I think did it is Hector. As I said, I think Hector's the one that did it. I think Hector's involved with this, and I think, especially what ends up happening to Tony, I think Hector definitely is the one that did it. So other officers arrive, and they say they want to talk to Tony. He's taken to the police station and interviewed by the detective investigating the home invasion, and he asks if anyone else has driven the car and inquires about where Tony was Sunday night because, he really wants to know what's going on there and everything. And Tony claims that nobody else has really driven it. He doesn't really know too much of what's really going on there, and I definitely really enjoyed that because it makes us, again, care for these characters, and I definitely like that a lot. So Russ and Barb tell a reporter about their son and daughter-in-law, and Russ served in the military, and this I like because we get to know more about their son and his wife. Russ served in the military, enlisting after 9/11, and married his high school sweetheart, a beauty queen. They were a perfect couple, as Barb says, and she also says her other son, Mark, is also serving in the military, and Barb says that the police are looking for an illegal or something, and then it figures out her son went to another country to fight and then came home to America to be killed by someone from another country. So Russ is pretty upset by the way Barb talks about their family, but Barb says he has no right to be upset, and you see why these two now split up. You see what happened between these two, and I like this because I want to know what happened between them. Because Barb's saying he has no right to be upset because he gambled away all their money sending her and the boys to public housing, and she's really upset what he did to them, and it's understandable why. I mean, that's really sucks what he did. I mean, he really screwed them over by doing that, and you have to feel bad for them. But at the same time, it kind of just seems like Barb doesn't really care as much about her family. And, Russ doesn't like that Barb is being so public about it because he wants to keep it under wraps. So I definitely really like this. I like that those two don't really agree because it doesn't try to depict them as the perfect people. And that's what I like about the show is that every character is flawed. And I'll definitely get them when we get more into the acting, but that's something I definitely was really intriguing about the show. So Carter's seen going to find a gun, which he pulls out of a pipe where it had been hidden, and we return to the police station where Hector meets Tony and the detective. And Hector says that Tony wasn't home Sunday night and was at the garage, and the detective tells Hector he needs Tony to tell the truth. After being grilled by his father, Tony admits that it was their car that became a person of interest in the home invasion, and as we learned earlier, Tony had given the car to Hector, and he tells his father that he did it to make some money. So basically, he did this to make money and had nothing to really do with Matt's murder. You can tell it really didn't have to do with Matt. But of course, these are police officers. They're going to do investigation. I mean, they're definitely starting to put clues together. You can tell they are. So Carter goes to buy drugs, but doesn't really have the money to buy them, so he pulls out the gun and begins beating the dealer, stealing the drugs, which he takes back to his apartment to share with his girlfriend Eve. And that was crazy when that whole scene, it really shows that these two are definitely going to be criminals. I mean, you can tell that these two are definitely going to be the anti-heroes of the show. Definitely. We're going to root for them, but yet they do some very bad shit. And those are the best. Honestly, a lot of people say, yeah, we have a lot of anti-heroes on TV and it's very cliched. But honestly, I think the reason we do that is because they're such great characters to watch. I mean, just seeing these characters, I definitely really like seeing them. I think they're very good characters overall, and I think these two are definitely going to be the anti-heroes of the show, as I said. Definitely, I think that's what they're going to be. So, I really enjoyed seeing that, definitely. And their bonding definitely is one of the strongest parts of the show. I mean, definitely Eve and Carter, I really like their characters. So, at the police station, Tony tells the detective that he has been renting the car, and he says a man who knows his friend Adam had been renting the car, came by to rent it for $50, and the man was, as the detective says, a gangster. And Tony says the man had rented the car from him multiple times. He gives the detective the number the man had been texting Tony from, and again, the detective isn't really sure what's exactly going on here, and it's again a very sad scene to watch because you know that he didn't do it, but of course the detective doesn't really know that. So Hector's at his store where he tries to use the Skooky credit card. He gets nervous as the store's computer doesn't work and leaves. As he does, police cars show up and Hector begins to run. And as he's running away, the officers jump out and shoot Hector once from behind. He's taken into surgery, and it turns out he was actually shot in the leg and survived. And the detectives, which is kind of interesting actually. I thought they were going to kill him off. I'm like, please don't kill him off because I think he's the one that did it. So the detectives comes to the hospital and tell Hector that they have a witness who can place him in a car that was spotted at the scene of the homicide, and that he was found in possession of the victim's wallet and credit card, and he says that he didn't kill anybody, but he won't say who did. So I think that's very interesting. But to me, it just seems like he's playing the victim card. I don't know. It definitely seems like he is. He seems a lot more malicious than he really is, and I really like that about his character. He's a very intriguing character, and that's something I definitely like about his character. Is that I can definitely there are definitely clues here that he could be the one that did. Now I know that they're saying a Puerto Rican did it, but who's to say that he's the one that murdered Matt? Who's to say that this wasn't like a team thing where Hector gave the car to Tony, and Tony, yeah, he was in the car, but he wasn't the one that murdered Matt. Maybe Tony just did it for money. I mean, you can definitely tell that they have a lot going on in their life, definitely. You can tell that there's a lot going on, and you can tell how bad it is, and I definitely really enjoyed that. I mean, we saw a scene with Tony and his father, and, Alonzo was talking about how Tony how they really don't have a lot of money because his wife had a heart problem and she died because of that, and maybe Tony was just trying to get him and his family money. I could definitely see that being a possibility, and I think that it really is what's going on there. I don't know, what do you guys think? That's what I think is going on. So at the police station, Tony tells the detective that, oh, I just read this. Okay, so after the cop presses him, Hector says a black dude came to him looking for the ride, and he says the guy, a meth head, wanted to settle a score for him and his girlfriend with a white man, and he says he wouldn't take the meth head anywhere, but that he ran off and came back with a wallet and credit cards, and Hector says, you know why you shot me? Because you don't give a damn about me. And I thought that was really interesting that he said that. And I think that's very interesting. It kind of just plays into the idea of just him possibly being a suspect. I don't know, but I definitely feel like we're gonna care about his character a lot more as well. We don't know a lot about his character, but I definitely we're gonna find out more about his character, which I really am interested in seeing how his character is. So the SWAT team breaks down the door at Carter's apartment, arresting him and Eve. And at the police station, Tony is arrested for murder. And this is such a hard scene to watch. You know he didn't do it, but of course the clues just they put him together. They think he did it, and he's dragged off screaming as his father yells at the officers. Now it's understandable why Carter was arrested because he, of course, killed that drug dealer. So obviously something bad's gonna happen to him. So Eve is at the hospital having the injuries from the earlier beating looked at. She's chained in the bed and the detective asks her to cooperate, asking if Carter caused her wounds. And the detective tells Russ, and now she doesn't say anything here. So I'm kind of wondering, is Carter abusive towards Eve? I don't know. I think it could be a possibility. He definitely is very violent, and there are points in the episode where she kind of looked like she was scared of him. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but there are definitely points where you look at her and she looks scared, or there's just something about her that's scared. So I don't know if he is abusing her, but I definitely feel like there's something going on in their relationship that we don't know about yet. But as I said, I definitely feel like they're going to be the anti-heroes of this show. You can just tell, especially Carter. So detective tells Russ and Barb that they have 4 people in custody. Barb goes to the police station to see the man accused of killing her son, Carter, who is taken by her in handcuffs. And Carter apparently is the one that has been accused of killing their son. Now, one of the things I heard the show was going to experiment with was the whole idea of black people and Spanish people and things like that. And I will say that when you see a black person or a Spanish person involved in a crime, you automatically assume that they did it. And I like the show is playing around with that because think of how many times you've seen that on the news. And I think the show is really, I heard that the show is definitely going to play around with that. And that was something that actually drew me into the show. Because I think racism is actually a very cool concept when you handle it right, especially because this is from the director of 12 Years a Slave. I definitely feel like they're going to tackle that, and I really think they're going to do a very good job with tackling that. That's something that I'm definitely looking forward to. So in the end of the episode, we get this extremely intriguing conversation. This is a very intriguing conversation. I'm very interested in seeing where this is going to go, because this is very interesting. So another detective talks to Russ about whether his son was hiding things from him or involved in drugs. Now, of course, Russ said that him and Matt were very close, and Russ says he would know if his son was using drugs, and the detective says they found drugs including meth and marijuana packed to sell. Now, Russ is shocked because the detective asked him a very interesting question, that is, would your son have told you if he was a drug dealer? That's basically how it ends. Now, who do I think killed Matt? I think Carter or Eve was the one that did it now. I feel like they are definitely the criminals here because we know that Carter wants drugs for Eve. Who's to say that Eve wouldn't do the same for Carter? I could see that being a possibility, definitely. And just the way they're depicting them, they definitely seem like villains to me. Definitely. I mean, I'm not going to point fingers here and say that Carter's the one that did it because he's black. That's not why I'm saying he did it. I'm saying he did it because I think that they're just portraying them as villainous characters. But wow, what an amazing cliffhanger and what an amazing premiere. There are so many things I love that the show is doing. First of all, I love the tense relation between Barb and Russ. You know, Russ really wants them to be a family, but Barb doesn't want anything to do with him because, you know, he didn't give them money and he wasn't really a good husband to her. But I definitely feel like this is going to be one of those shows where eventually they do get back together and he tries to give her, and she realizes that, yeah, she does truly love him. And I'm wondering if that is going to be one of the things in the show. And if it is, I'm very drawn to that because I think that's very interesting. I'm definitely interested in seeing where that's going to go. Now let's talk about Tom for a second. Tom and Barb, I really think their characters are very interesting. Tom and Eve, their characters are definitely very interesting, as I said. I think one of the things I really like about Tom and Eve's characters is the fact that those two are very protective towards Gwen, and they don't want anything bad to happen to Gwen. They don't want her to be, they don't want people to know about it. So there's definitely going to be a lot of tension between them, Barb, and Russ. I can definitely see that being a possibility. I'm very interested in seeing where that's going to go, and I really like that. Now, Hector. Hector, I think, is the one that killed Matt because, of course, why would he be using his identity? How does he know Russ and Matt? I want to see some flashbacks here, okay? I want this to be a show where we see flashbacks of what was going on so we get more and more clues as it goes on. However, the show is not just about a whodunit, which I really do love about the show. It's more about the impact of these people and how the crimes impact them. As I said, Aubrey and Carter, I think, are going to be the two big anti-heroes of the show. We're going to totally root for them, but we shouldn't, and I love that. I love an anti-hero character, and I think those two, they're setting them up to be the next great anti-heroes on TV, and I love it. Benito Martin, and they're all just, I really want to talk about the acting on this show. Felicity Huffman is great as Barb, but I really want to talk about Timothy Hutton, who is just fantastic as Russ. I mean, some of his scenes were just truly so hard to watch. You feel so bad for him that his son was killed, and especially because he didn't really know what was going on. You just feel so bad because he's had such a terrible life and things like that. Plus, one of the things I like is that it's just two people. There's nothing special about them. It's two people whose son was killed, because that could happen to anybody. You see on the news all the time, these murders happen, and I really like that the show plays around with that. These aren't celebrities. These aren't famous people. No, they're normal people who have been affected by one crime that's going to change their entire life, and that's one of the things I love about the show. W. Earl Byrne as Tom Carlin's really good. But I think the real big highlights of the show, the person that really stands out to me, is Johnny Ortiz as Tony. Oh my God, this kid is going to really be this kid is going to be someone to look for during Emmys. He is fantastic in this role. I love his role as Tony. He does a very good job at it. The two, Carter and Aubrey, Caitlin Gerard as Aubrey, and Elvis Nolasco as Carter, they're both fantastic. And Benito Martinez is great as Tony's father, Alonzo. You definitely really care about their characters. And as I said, that's something I really do love about the show as well. And I think that's really due in part to the writing on the show, which is just, my friend put it simply, it's simple writing. It is. It's simple, everyday conversations. But they have such an impact because of what's happened to these characters and how broken they are and what's happened to them. You feel so bad for them, and you really are interested in seeing what's going to happen next. And I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen next. I think that this is going to be a show where, yeah, it is definitely going to be, I think it should definitely be a one and done. But I think as the episodes goes on, it's just going to get more and more intriguing. I don't see this show getting stale at all during the season. I really don't. I see the show just being consistently amazing. I heard How to Get Away with Murder was like that. I didn't watch that show, but I heard it was like that. And I think this show is going to be like that as well, which I can't wait to see if it is that. I mean, ABC has had 3 new crime shows. This, Secrets and Lies, and I can't think of the other one. What was the other one? How to Get Away with Murder. How to Get Away with Murder, there was that, but there was one other one. I can't think of it right now, but this one is definitely going to be the best of the bunch. Everyone said it. I have to agree. It really is the best of the bunch because it's not just a simple crime drama. It's not a whodunit. It's not a did this person do it. It's how it affects people. It deals with racism. It deals with stereotypes. It deals with politics as well. It deals with clashing of people. It deals with divorce. It deals with everyday themes, and that's something that I love about American Crime. That is what makes a great TV show, and that's why I absolutely love the show. But that's basically for my review, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this premiere. I think it's amazing. I think it's very intriguing. I can't wait to see what happens. What was Matt involved with drugs? I definitely feel like he did not tell Russ everything. There were tons of stuff that he was hiding from him, and you can tell there was. I don't know what's really going on there, but that's really interesting. Are Carter and Eve going to be the anti-heroes of the show? I definitely feel like they are. Let me know what you guys think of the show overall. I definitely am interested for episode 2. I can't wait to see what episode 2 brings us. And I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for either a movie review or for my review of Glee. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.